بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
القسطاس المستقيم ذلك خير وأحسن تأويلا ولا تقف ما ليس لك به علم إن السمع والبصر والفؤاد كل أولئك كان عنه مسؤولا. This is chapter 35 and 36, verses 35 and 36 of chapter 17. And their English translation is, and give full measure when you measure out, and weigh with a true balance. This is fair and better in the end. And follow not that of which you have no knowledge. Surely hearing and the seeing and the heart of all of these it will be asked. Next one is verse 39. ذَلِكَ مِمَّا أَوْحَى إِلَيْكَ رَبُّكَ مِنَ الْحِكْمَةِ وَلَا تَجْعَلْ مَعَ اللَّهِ إِلَٰهًا آخَرَ فَتُلْقَىٰ فِي جَهَنَّمَ مَلُومًا مَدْحُورًا. This is from the wisdom which your Lord has revealed to you. And do not set up with Allah any other God, or you would be thrown into hell, blamed and cast away. Next is chapter 26, verses 181 to 183. Awful كَيْلَ وَلَا تَكُونُوا مِنَ الْمُخْسِرِينَ وَزِنُوا بِالْقِسْطَاسِ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ وَزِنُوا بِالْقِسْطَاسِ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ وَلَا تَبْخَسُوا النَّاسَ أَشْيَاءَهُمْ وَلَا تَعْثَوْا فِي الْأَرْضِ مُفْسِدِينَ. Give full measure and do not diminish or do not cause the other party a loss. And weigh with a true balance, and do not wrong people of their dues, nor act corruptly in the earth, making mischief. I've recited these verses because they impact upon what's happening in the United Kingdom at the current time these days. And that is the publication of the Grenfell Inquiry Report. Grenfell Tower was the name of a very tall tower block of flats, residential flats, which was looking run down. So it was decided to renew the exterior to make it look good. And to do that, the cheapest way was to attach some cladding to the exterior of this outside wall of this tower. And then 7 years ago, one flat in that tower caught fire, and this cladding that had been installed on the outside walls of the tower was instrumental in getting that fire spread throughout the tower. It spread rapidly, killing 75 people. The government set up a commission of inquiry, which published its report yesterday, and it concluded that the cladding that had been used was a major part of getting the fire to spread, and that the manufacturers, the installers, the inspectors, everyone knew that that cladding was defective and would cause any fire to spread, but they hid this fact. You're all wondering what the above verses have to do with this. But before I comment upon what I want to say and relate these verses to what's happening, I want to compare an aspect of Islamic and British law. Islamic law, as stated in the Holy Quran, states things in broad terms that need to be interpreted. And the beauty of this such expression is that as situation changes, the Quranic commandments and injunctions can be reinterpreted to suit the new situation or deal with the new situation. And this is the reason that Quranic law is eternal, because it applies to all situations at all times. You can always reinterpret it. Now, British law is specific. And if it's specific, it applies to the situation that it's trying to deal with. Or as the law says, to remedy the wrong that it's dealing with. Now, according to British family law, and this will make my wife very happy, it says that it is the duty of a husband to take the rubbish outside the house so that the rubbish collectors sent by the local council can collect it. And if the husband doesn't do this, the wife can complain to the court. She can go to the family court, and I can be fined as much as 6 old pennies for not putting the rubbish out and forcing my wife having to do it. And then there's another example. When motor cars became common, then a similar issue arose again. Who was responsible for the motor cars maintenance? Because many families started to have 2 cars, or women started driving as well. As long as only men drove, then it was easy. Well, it's your car, you drive it. You are responsible for making sure that it's fit for purpose. But when both started driving, or when they got 2 cars, who was responsible? So the law was amended, I think it was 1930s or sometime, and it said that it is the duty of a husband. So in 1930s, the government passed a law which said that it is the husband's job to look after the exterior of the car. It's his job to make sure that there's water in the radiator. It's his job to make sure that there is water in the store from which the screen cleaner, screen wipe, get its water, and so on and so forth. And any scratches, and filling it with petrol, and making sure the oil is topped up, it's all the husband's job. But then it went on to say that it's a wife's job to make sure that the interior of the car is clean and that it smells nice and fresh. So both of these laws that I cited as examples, and they're specific. And although outdated, and although no one uses them anymore, they're still on the statute book, and technically they are still laws of the land. But the problem is you can't reinterpret them in any way. Situations change, and so on, but these laws are specific. You can't change them. So if a new situation arises, then you have to make a new law, because you're making laws which are specific to particular situations. And these laws are no more effective than the law which is still, I think, on the statute book, which says that after the church service every Sunday, all males must practice archery for 2 hours. Now, of course, at that time, Britain was a Christian country, well, in fact, mostly people followed the Protestant faith and they went to church, etc. That is no longer the case. But the government can't be bothered to repeal these laws. Custom and tradition have meant that they've fallen into disuse. The police don't come round on Sundays and knock on the door and say, "What are you doing at home? You should be on the common in your town practicing archery. You're committing an offense, so we are arresting you," etc., etc. But the Quranic law that I mentioned above may be applied to physically measuring out or weighing some spices or tea or salt or whatever in return for a sum of money. But it also applies just as much to Grenfell Tower and the cladding, etc., that is used. You may ask how that is so. And the reply is, let's look at verse 26, 181, which says, "And give full measure, and do not cause the other party a loss." Do not diminish is the literal translation, but what it means is don't cause your customer a loss. So you can apply that to Grenfell Tower. People who put up this cladding did not give full measure because they knew that the cladding was defective. They knew that it wasn't fireproof. But they still used it because it was cheaper than other type of cladding which was available. So they did not give full measure. The full measure would have been cladding that does not catch fire, cladding that does not help the fire to spread. And it says, and do not diminish. And they did diminish it. How? That the people who own these flats, they're suffering a loss. No one wants to buy those flats. Grenfell burned down, but there are thousands of other blocks of flats where people bought flats and now they're stuck. No one wants to buy those flats. So these verses that I recited, they actually lay down a principle. And what's the principle? The principle is that when you enter into a contract with someone, then do not do anything that will cause the other party a loss. And an example is used in verse 182. And weigh with a true balance. What you can do is, as you know, things were weighed with balances where you put the standard weights on one side and whatever the customer is buying in the other pan. And what you could do is put a little weight under the pan and under measure by the amount of the weight that is sticking to the bottom of that pan. But the Quran says, and weigh with a true balance. That means that don't do anything that will cause the other party a loss. So correct balances, as I just gave an example, but if you move away from actually weighing and measuring things, using the correct balance can be interpreted as using instruments and materials which will do the job correctly. And don't cut corners or use cheap materials which make you a profit, but that may cause your customer a loss. But these verses can be applied to any transactions. My family and I, we were in Karachi and we went to catch a boat to go across the sea to some island which was a tourist attraction. And the boat was so overloaded that the water was actually coming up to the rim of the boat. I mean, we refused to get in and, left, but and they were still taking people on to take them across to this island. And yet the shipping company, by taking these people's money, had entered into a contract which said that they will ship those in that boat safely across the sea to the tourist attraction. And obviously it wasn't possible. They were putting these people in danger twice. Once taking them to this island, second time bringing them back. You might think, oh, well, this is a third world country and what do you expect and so on. But this equally applies to the case when defective screws were used to secure the window of a passenger airline. You must have seen this on the news not long ago that an aircraft took off, and when there was a difference in pressure between inside the aircraft and outside the aircraft, a window blew up. And it put all the passengers traveling in that aircraft in danger. This is no different at all to what these people in Karachi were doing by overloading the boat. The point is, every business does it as much as they can. They don't care about the danger to the lives and health and security of the people that they are causing, as long as their profit is great. And putting lives of other people in danger and so on. The sad thing is that Muslims have become prescriptive. If I challenged that man who owned the boat, he would have said, what? Where is it mentioned in the Quran? It doesn't mention my boat anywhere in the Quran. It doesn't mention how many passengers I can load into my boat. All it is saying is, use the correct measure. And he would refuse to listen to the fact that correct measure actually means don't overload your boat. But to Muslims, Islam is restricted to following minor rules. How long is your beard? What's the height of your trousers above your ankles? How much of her hair can a woman show while praying so that her prayer is accepted by Allah? And 1,000 other minor nitpicking rules. And the thing, Islam is not about observing basic principles of decency and moral behavior. This is why we can't put ourselves forward as examples to say to non-Muslims, if only you behaved in this way, this calamity would not have happened. But on the other side, the sad thing about the British legal system is that although it has qualities, but it takes such a long time to get to a decision that you think the old proverb about justice delayed is justice denied is absolutely correct. It's going to take another 2 years for the police to decide whether they should bring any criminal charges against anyone. Manufacturers of that cladding, installers of that cladding, inspectors who went there and inspected and said it was fine, and there's a long list. Remember this, it's taken 7 years to get to this point. 7 years. It's going to take another 2 years before charges are brought. And then it's going to take another 5 years before a final decision is taken, because these people may go as far as the Supreme Court, appealing, and so on. So that's 15 years before a decision. Do you think it's fair? Not just about Grenfell Tower, but do you think it's fair to the people who are still living in such flats? There are over 4,000 tower blocks with flats in a similar condition. People who bought them can't sell them. They're terrified of living in those flats because they don't know whether they'll wake up alive in the morning or not, and so on. So in the light of the Grenfell Tower report, I thought I would share some thoughts with you. And I always wonder how on the day of judgment we are going to answer Allah when he says, you cut corners, you overloaded this boat and it sank and 20 people died. Is our reply going to be, but Allah, please measure the length of my beard? It's correct. Oh Allah, please measure the length of my trouser above my ankle. That is correct. Oh Allah, measure the hijab on my head. It covers all my hair. Is that what God is going to question you about? Or is he going to question you about your civic and moral duties which you failed to fulfill? I leave the answer to you. Barakallahu lana wa lakum fil Qur'anil azim wa nafana wa iyyakum bil ayati wa zikril hakim. Innahu ta'ala jawadun kareemun malikun barrun rahim. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillahi nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa nu'minu. Sorry about that, my throat was getting too dry. Alhamdulillahi nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa nu'minu bihi wa natawakkalu alayhi wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlilhu fala hadiya lahu. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammadin kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammadin kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. اللهم انصر من نصر دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم واجعلنا منهم واقصر من خذل دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ولا تجعلنا منهم. عباد الله رحمكم الله، إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. اذكروا الله يذكركم وادعوه يستجب لكم ولذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah. Hayya ala salah, hayya ala falah, qad qamatis salah, qad qamatis salah. Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah. Allahu Akbar. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahmanir Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin, Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in, Ihdinas siratal mustaqim, Siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim ghairil maghdubi 'alaihim waladdallin. Amin. Alif Lam Mim. Zalikal kitabu la rayba fihi hudal lil muttaqin. الذين يؤمنون بالغيب ويقيمون الصلاة ومما رزقناهم ينفقون. الذين يؤمنون بما أنزل إليك وما أنزل من قبلك وبالآخرة هم يوقنون. أولئك على هدى من ربهم وأولئك هم المفلحون. إن الذين كفروا سواء عليهم أأنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون. ختم الله على قلوبهم وعلى سمعهم وعلى أبصارهم غشاوة ولهم عذاب عظيم. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده
ربنا
الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده
ربنا
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر السلام عليكم ورحمة الله السلام عليكم ورحمة الله أستغفر الله من كل ذنب وأتوب منك السلام منك السلام تبارك ربنا وبك يا رب. Thank you for joining us for today's Friday service. With the request again, please pray for everyone, regardless of their religious sect, religion, nationality, caste, or creed, that God may protect the whole of humanity. And with that prayer, I take my leave of you. Assalamu alaikum, Khuda Hafiz, and goodbye.